Hey, welcome to the show, Leading and Growing Your Real Estate Business. This is Coach James Short, aka Shorty, and this is a show for those within the real estate industry wanting to lead and grow their real estate business. It's a series of interviews that we conduct for those within the industry. So we're finding out what those leaders are within the industry, what makes them tick, what's their story, what are their strategies, and how to become the leaders and the growers within the industry. But also, it's an interview series with those outside of the industry. I'm always a big believer of looking at a whole different part of the pie rather than just focusing on one part of the pie. Because what it does, it allows you to have a different perspective, allows you to get snippets or golden nuggets from those outside of the industry that can look in the industry and go, there's a different perspective. And so I encourage you to reach out to the guests. I encourage you to lean into these series to find out how can these pieces of information, experiences, stories help you lead and grow your real estate business. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited. Why am I excited? Because this is our first edition of our new long form of getting to understand on a deeper level our amazing guests. What I realized doing, I think we're up to around about 86 episodes. The 20 to 30 minutes is great. It's impactful, it's insightful, we'll get some golden nuggets, but it doesn't allow you to go deeper with the guests. It doesn't really get you to unpack how they think, what their insights are on a deeper level. And so this is our first edition, and I'm excited to have this amazing guest with us to launch this new style, new form, because he's been a guest on the show multiple times. His episodes are always the highest ranked, highest viewed. And so I thought, what a great opportunity to start this new long form edition with the man himself, Alan Stevens. Now, as you know, Alan is an international acclaimed profiling and communication specialist and the creator of rapid trait profiling, a revolutionary method for understanding people through facial features, micro expressions, and body language. Recognized by The Guardian as the world's leading authority on reading people, he has worked with global giants like Disney Films, Gillette, and the Australian Federal Police. As the founder of the Campfire Project and a director of the Business of Smiles charity, Alan's mission is clear: building authentic relationships, transforming lives, and tackling critical issues such as coercive control and domestic violence. It's an honor, an absolute privilege to have a friend, mentor, and just a bloody good bloke on the show with us today. Alan, thank you and welcome.
Thanks very much. And by the way, I feel quite honoured. We have had quite a few talks, as you've said before, short form ones. To be the first of your long form, I feel quite honoured in that. So thank you very much for the invitation.
Well, mate, you've been a massive impact on my life and the family's life and also for clients and the network and so many people. The work that you do, the impact that you have is just my appreciation to say thank you for everything that you've done and who you are. So, mate, once again, it's awesome. So where do we start? Let's talk a little bit about profiling, right? I mean, because gosh, there's so many rabbit holes we can go down. Let's talk about profiling and because we've talked about your history, we've talked about how you've gotten here, but what I really want to understand is the profiling because it's changed my life. It's changed many of family, friends, and so forth's lives. Talk to me about why profiling is so important and why it is different but to so many other, I guess, profiling things that you can do out there.
Right. Well, one of the biggest issues is that today we're all disconnected. We've got our
Mm.
devices. You would think that we're more connected, but we're not. We're using our devices every day, and we often see it. People sitting there together, they're all on their phones. They're not even talking to each other. They're actually chasing things up. Uh, and some people can't talk to each other without going through the phones. You might have two people sitting there and they're typing away on their phones, and then you find out they're actually conversing with each other.
It
And I'm
says.
going, this is crazy, because we know that when we talk to people, the words themselves only are a small percentage of the actual communications. Now, whether you debate the figures of 7% for the words, 38% for the tone of voice, and 55% for the body language, etc., the words themselves, when you say them, we put different inflection on the sentences. So we change the whole meaning. Wherever we put the inflection, changes, it creates a new meaning for that sentence. When we do it in text, we can't do it. That's one of the reasons why I refuse to have conversations via email. If somebody sends me a long email, I just send it back to them with the initials TLDR. Too long, didn't read, pick up the phone. Well, let's get together.
I love that.
Coffee.
I love
Let's
that.
be social. It's one of the things that with COVID, we pulled away from everybody and we then everything was done online. And people have been reluctant to get back out into the community. And I prefer to go out, sit down with somebody, have a coffee, because we can connect at a deeper level. And that's what profiling is all about. How can I look at your face and know how you like to think and process so I can then talk to you in the way that you need to be spoken to and want to be spoken to? Because that way, then I'm able to connect with you at a deeper level. Now, whether that be in personal relationships, raising your children, in sales, or building your workplace relationships, we need to be able to get down to that degree to be able to connect with somebody. Because in sales, yes, I've got a way that I like to be spoken to, a certain amount of information that I need to receive before I can actually make a decision. Now, my preference would be to talk the way I like to be spoken to. But if that's a different style to the one you have, I'm not going to connect. And so I can spend all that time talking to you. I'll probably get a lot of yeses from you, but those yeses aren't because you're interested, just because you want me to shut up and move on. And for the people out there who are listening to it, how many times have you spoken to somebody, everything seemed to be going fine, and then when you've got back, you've sent some information to them, and then you try and get in touch with them again, and you get crickets.
Yeah,
that will tell you that all those yeses weren't yeses because they were interested in what you were doing. It's because they just wanted to move on to the next thing. So I learned a long time ago, negotiations don't start until you get a no from the person. So instead of chasing yeses all the time, the first thing I'm looking at doing is how can I get a no in the right format that causes us then to get into a deeper conversation? So it goes from me doing a presentation to a conversation with that person. And the more I understand their personality, I know how to then, word what I'm talking to them, what emphasis to put on. Are they somebody who just likes the overview, the least amount of information? Because I'm a little bit more analytical. I need some more information before I make a decision. And if I talk in the way that I love to be talked to, they're going to switch off. I'll talk myself into a sale and then talk myself out of it. So knowing that is extremely important. At the same time, knowing the person's personality, I know how they like to be spoken to, also the careers and things that they love doing. So if I've got them in my team, I know what tasks to give them so they feel confident and happy in the work they're doing. But let's face it, if they're happy in their work they're doing, they're going to be more productive. And if it's my business, I'm going to make more money. And
so true.
If I want to work on my business, the only way I can do that is having people in the business working in it, and they've got to be, loving the work they're doing. This is why we've got to have relationships.
And I think it's like you look at it, obviously COVID was a big impact of, the whole working from home and a lot of businesses are starting to bring back, I mean, gosh, it's, 4 or 5 years down the track now. A lot of businesses are starting to bring back their teams into the workplace at least, majority of the time and maybe having some flexibility of working from home. But I think one of the big things about, working within the office is you have that, that water cooler talk. You have those interactions passing by compared to if you're at home, you're isolated and you said you don't have those relationships. And I think the more we can understand each other, the deeper the relationship that we can form. And I think particularly if you look at a business sense, knowing the strengths of your team and knowing how they like to be communicated, what type of role, what type of task they're really good at, to really, they say work on your weaknesses, but let's develop the strengths and really double down on the strengths so make people actually have their heart sing and really see value in what they do. And what's your thinking around that in relations to the lost art of the whole water cooler talk and really getting to know your teammates compared to the isolation of the working from home where do you see it progressing now as we move, over the next couple of years?
Well, as you said, we're going down the rabbit hole. There's a couple of little channels that I can go down here. It just depends on which way the ferret chases me as to where I go. But if just looking at education to start with, we spend 13 years at school all about working on our weaknesses. If you're not good at
Yep.
maths, you get extra work on your maths. If you're not good at English, you get extra work on that.
That's
But
true.
who employs you for your weaknesses?
Yes.
13 years later, we're out in the workforce. They say, where's your strengths? And we go, I don't know, because I've spent so much time working on my weaknesses.
Mm.
And when people are working on their weaknesses, they're not happy. This is why so many people are miserable at school. And then they're miserable in the workplace, especially when they go and get the career that doesn't match their personalities. So that's the first place we look at. But the other thing is the water cooler. This is one thing that gets me. We've got all these experts out there. And many years ago, they said, okay, let's get rid of the coffee machine. Let's get rid of the water coolers, and we'll get people working at the desk. Now, the trouble with that was now you had to micromanage them because they only do what they have to do. And if you weren't looking over their shoulders, they'd be doing their own thing. They'd only do it, but it's the bare minimum to keep their job. And then they finally realized that 67% of the conversations that really worked in an organization that was very effective and profitable were idle chit chat. What do you do on the weekend? How's your family, etc.? Because that's when we bond. We're tribal creatures. Yep. But the micromanagers went, no, we've got to get rid of that. And their productivity dropped. Now, people will extend themselves and work harder when they feel that they're valued, they contribute, that they have a place and they belong. So if you can do that as business owner, then you can step out and work on your business, which you can't do if you're working in the business. But the only way you can step out of the business and do that is to have other people in the business working on the business or in the business. And so
Do you see that aspect of the micromanaging and the middle managers, do you see improving, or do you see getting worse over the last couple of years and moving forward?
Well, I'm seeing it starting to go back the other way again towards the negative. If the people who are the business owners are saying, right, I want you back in the office, we need to know whether they want them back in the office so they can see the people because they've got to micromanage, or whether they realize that at home you miss that social connection. How do you work as a team? You can work well as a team remotely if you have some connection with each other. And if you can have conversations, that's why I know a lot of people were told they had to go back into the office at least a couple of days a week. Now, I've looked at their faces when they've gone back in or when they're working at home. They're happier when they're at home, but they're miserable when they're going back into work because they still haven't worked on that connection in the workplace. They're still going, right, if I've got you here, I can make sure you're working at desk. And something that really upset me the other day, AI is now watching people at their desk, the cameras and that, and it's checking out whether they go to the water cooler, how often they go, and who they're talking to when they go for coffee.
Oh my gosh.
And
How many times you got the toilet?
Exactly. So it's like, it's not Big Brother watching you, it's this Gestapo watching you. It's lunacy because those people are all, now they're concentrating on, okay, I'm being watched. I'll make sure I'm doing whatever it is that doesn't get me into trouble. But is that work productive?
And that's also, I guess it's coming then out of a sense of fear then. And so when people are coming from a sense of fear, they're losing their creativity, they're losing the expansionness, they're losing it just really, I guess, squashes people's willingness to take risks and willingness to put themselves out there because they're coming from a fear response. Would that be fair call?
That's it. See, this is what competition's all about. We look at our competitors, especially if we've just started a business, how do we work at our pricing? We go and look at what everybody else is charging and we put our price down below it. Well, if everybody is doing that, we're all getting this massive race to the bottom of the pile. We're putting ourselves out of business. Collaboration, especially co-creations, that's when you work together with somebody. You bring two minds together and you create something greater than the two halves together. Yep. On their own. And so it's all about what can I create? Now, I've worked with you in the past. I've worked with, the three of us have worked together in a group. I've got another two people I'm working with. I've got several others I'm working one-on-one. In fact, I've gone to the next level. I'm creating and training my competition because I realize we need more people doing what I'm doing, but they've got to be doing it right. Yep. And this is protecting myself by training others. Because if we look at life coaching, for instance, there's some fantastic coaches out there, but they're all struggling because of the reputation that the mediocre ones are given to the industry. In Australia, if you say you're a life coach, someone brings out the crucifix and the garlic. That's how bad it's gotten. And so I looked at it and thought, rightio, how can we find the best in those fields? And I always look for them so I can support them. And I thought, well, if I go and do the same thing in my field, find people who want to learn my stuff, then help them and train them to be the top maximum level they can be. And in fact, people often say to me, can I be as good as you? I said, well, you better set the bar high because I expect you to be better. And they go, how can I do that with all your experience? I said, you're going to get all of my experience in the training, but you're going to bring something else to the table that I don't have. And when we put that together, you'll create something greater again. So I learned, 40 years ago, that if I helped other people, like my team, for instance, and got them promoted, people said, oh, but you'll lose your job if somebody else comes up and they can do your job. I go, no, the people above me could see I had greater potential. They'd move into the next level. If I was fearful about anybody on my team outdoing what I did, then I'd put myself into prison. But if I help them to actually grow and then prove to everybody else, I've got more capacity, because while you're lighting someone else's path, you're lighting your own. You're always learning. So people say to me, are you a teacher? And I go, well, I'm a part-time teacher, but I'm a full-time learner. Everybody I work with, I'm learning from them. While I'm doing that, I'm increasing the capacity of what I've got to offer. And to any employer or any company I'm working with, they then see I've got greater potential, therefore greater potential more than my competitors. And so they're more likely to hire me in it. So I expand myself by helping others. And people get it.
So that's a really good point, right? Because, this is the whole leadership topic, which I'd love to sort of unpack with you around, lifting people up and getting them to be better than you. Like leadership is it's a really big topic, and it's a really perspective on, what people has viewpoints around. But that in itself is a really strong leadership trait of lifting up those around you to even surpass you. Where do you think the current leaders of today are falling down in relations to that whole leadership piece and building around them? Where do you think it's going wrong?
Well, there's several issues. We confuse management with leaders. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
we're talking about all these managers being leaders. Well, are they? They may be managing well, but usually they're micromanaging, or they're focused on the resources, and they treat their people as resources instead of treating them like assets. They're an asset to the business. And so, and at the same time, as I said, they're also worried about the position that they hold. My whole life, in telecom, as a surf lifesaver. Surf lifesaver is probably a great example. And that's, I was club captain of one of the beaches and zone supervisor of 3 others. I decided I wanted to move on. And so I really talked hard to get one of the guys to take on the club captain's job. He couldn't see the ability that he had, but I could. And there was a couple of people in the club that weren't doing the right thing while I was a club captain. They were using the club for their own benefit. And I went, no, you want to compete and everything else, you'll have to do your patrols. There's certain things you have to do. Well, I ran into one of those guys a couple of years later, and he had a smirk on his face, and he went, oh, Mark was a far better club captain than you ever were. And I got this big smile on my face. He said, what are you smiling at? So, well, I really want to thank you. You have just confirmed to me that I made the best decision, because I couldn't leave that role if I didn't feel that the next person could take on the role and do a better job than me. Wipe the smirk off his face really quickly. But this has been my attitude all the way through life. When I left telecom and took redundancy, half my staff wanted to resign and come with me when they found out I was starting my own business. And they worked their tails off. We had the highest performance in Australia. Our customers loved us. My staff would bend over backwards. My management didn't understand it because they were just that. They were managers. They weren't leaders. They come up through the ranks, and it was always check everybody's work, make sure they're working, stand over them and all the rest of it. And I didn't like that, being in that position myself, having people look over my shoulder. So one of the things I did was, what is it I don't like? What do I love? When am I my most efficient? when I'm doing stuff that I love to do, and when I'm being treated with respect and dignity. And so I realized that if I wanted, because I look at myself first of all, that tells me how I need to be treating other people. There's two rules. The old golden rule was treat others as you would have them treat you. That's great when it comes to respect and things like that. But the platinum rule, that's even better again, is treat others in a way that they want you to treat them. So that means communicate with them in the way that they need to be communicated with. The whole
So
thing
true.
was make those, because everybody's got a gift of one form or another. An organization is made up of all the people who are different to us. The things I love doing, somebody else hates doing. And the stuff that the stuff that they love to do is stuff that I hate doing. So if there's stuff that I don't like doing and they love doing it, I can push that across the table to them. And they go, thank you very much. And I go, phew, got out of that one. And I can go and do the stuff that I'm good at, that I enjoy doing, and I'm more productive at.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I think there's 2 points there I want to bring up. Is one, when you chose your successor in that club captain approach, and that's a level 5 leadership type. If you look at the book Good to Great, the teachings around that, level 5 is the difference between the level 4 and the level 5 is your predecessor, the successor that takes over from you is actually takes the company to even further heights and continue on that success. And I think that's a really great demonstration of having those traits and being able to do that. And the second piece is the around about, you looked at where people's strengths are. And I think what I find most leaders fall down is they don't create enough space to, in their time, in their day, in their week, to look at the bigger picture and look at what we call blue sky time. So what I mean by that is the ability to go, here's the vision. As you said, let's work on it. And where are the different pieces of the puzzle being laid out? Where does that actually look like? What's that next move? What's that next strategy? Because so often leaders get stuck in the business and the day-to-day grind, but creating space in that blue sky time allows you to rise above and go, all right, how's this person? Where is that at? How's this person? Where that? What's their next step? What's the next stage? And I think that in itself is a huge impact around leadership. What I mean, with the advancement of AI, for example, where do you see leadership going, and how important is those relationships even further with the advancement of AI? What are your thoughts and views around that?
Well, the first thing is with AI, it should be a tool that we use to support what we're doing. And I use it quite regularly. If I've got to come up with an idea, I might put it out through AI and say, like, this is what I want to talk about, come up with some ideas. It comes back. And then I work on that and I'll talk backwards and forwards to the AI and build something up. But whatever I put out is always my work. It's never, okay, AI do this and then put that out as my work. And this is where a lot of people are going to go wrong. I know that some time ago, there was the kids were using AI to do their homework. But then the
Yeah.
teacher said, okay, we want it in your handwriting. So one of the kids got really smart and he programmed a 3D printer.
Stop it.
So it did his homework and then it wrote it in his handwriting. It's like, now you've got to think about that kid and go, here's somebody who's a real entrepreneur. So a lot of the jobs that he's being trained for at school, for instance, aren't going to fit him.
Yep.
But to rely on AI to do the work for you is a real problem. And people are very worried about their jobs. If you haven't built relationships with the people and they don't know that they're safe in the work they're doing, that they're valued and everything else, they're going to worry about AI. And any worry is like rust. It slowly spreads and their performance will drop further and further. So the first thing is making sure that they feel safe in the work that they're doing. At the same time, when it comes to the personality traits, for instance, there's always an upside and there's a downside. So the downside is how a person reacts when they're stressed. The upside is where their gifts are. But if we've got, say, somebody who I can see builds their confidence by doing things over and over and getting it right, they wouldn't be the person if they haven't done a presentation on stage. They're not the one I'm going to put on stage to present my stuff to an audience. But if I've got a new procedure I'm looking for and I've got to get it right because it's going to be the new way we do things, I'm not going to give it to the confident person. I'm going to give it to them. because I know they're going to go away and work on it, make sure they get it right. But my responsibility is to know that while they're working on it, questions are going to come up and they're going to get stressed out about it because they need to have support around them. So prior to giving, as I give it to them, I'll say, look, a lot of questions are going to come up when you're doing this. I guarantee it. And I know there's going to be some curly questions. So instead of sweating over it, because we've got to get this done in a certain period of time, got to get it done by next Thursday, Friday, whatever. As soon as those questions come up, come and see me and we'll nut it out together or work it out together. So now I've got their ability to make sure it's done absolutely right, but I've removed the worry off them. They also know they're getting support from me. Where do you think the loyalty levels have gone with them? Straight up through the roof. They feel that I've recognized their gifts and everything else. It's like somebody who has what I call judgment variation. There's somebody at school would have come up with a whole bunch of different ideas. And depending on whether they were somebody very analytical who would be able to explain it really well, or just somebody who wanted the just had this idea, the teacher, with the pressures they got on them, as a kid mentions it, I don't understand that. And the more that happens, finally, the teacher just goes, when they put their hand up, ignores them or tells them to go sit down and be quiet. When they go out into the workplace, we've lost a massive resource because now they won't open their mouth because what they got taught at school was to keep their mouth shut. If you can recognize that in their face, you can say to them, right, you're not getting out of this room until I've got some ideas from you, because I know you're going to have some great ideas. Now, I know in the past you probably got put down for them. I want to know, we're going to have a look at them. Once you come up with those ideas, we're going to look at them. We're going to work out where they work. If they don't work, they don't work. If they do work, we're going to implement it. And that person goes, well, this is the first time that's ever happened to me in my life. Where do you think the loyalty's gone again? In knowing the other person and talking to them in the way that they need to be spoken to, you create a resource that will keep working. Well, the definition of a business person was somebody who employed people that could go away from their business, even go on holidays, and the company would not only survive, but it would grow in their absence. How does it grow? By having people who are passionate about the work they're doing. How do you do that? Treat them the right way. Wasn't it Richard Branson, or others have said it as well through the through time immemorial, that look after your staff and they'll look after your business. They'll look after your customers, because you may build a relationship with a customer, then it's going to be your frontline staff who are working with them. And if they don't connect, you're going to lose that customer. You've got to go and get more customers. But if you've trained your people, you treated them in the right way, they take ownership of their work, they will take that ownership when they're talking to the customers, because they are the frontline connection to the customers. The customers enjoy the connection with them. They will stay longer. You can even get away with charging higher prices because those customers don't want to go and go with somebody else because they really love working with that company. You can go on holidays then.
Yeah, totally right.
How many business owners? Well, 67% of business people are saying that the Gallup research is showing that they don't know why they're still running their business. 67%.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. That is crazy. And the fail rate's through the roof at the moment too.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Now, you talked about schools a number of times, and now this is a big topic, and this is a big, like trying to turn a tanker, and you're involved with many different boards in schools and so forth, and associations. How do we change? How do we change it? How do we change the system, and where do we start?
Yeah, well, I was talking to Jihad Dib, who was the shadow minister for education for a long time, and as he said to me, he said, Alan, trying to turn the education system around in New South Wales, because it is the largest employer in the Southern Hemisphere. He said it's like trying to turn a super tanker around in Newcastle Harbour. It doesn't work.
So true.
I've had 3 tries with the education department. I've given up on them completely, especially with the last one. Now, I go out and research organisations before I go and talk to them. I know where their problems are. I know what it's cost them. I know what they've tried to put in place. I know how much it's worked, how much money they're hemorrhaging. And then I look at, well, where does my stuff fit into all those levels? And I did that with New South Wales Education and came back with the figure that they would save with just a 10% improvement, because we lose between 5,000 and 7,000 school teachers every year that drop out, they burn out. Now, 40% of, this is old figures and the situation's worse now, 40% of the teachers who have just finished their training will never see the inside of a classroom. They quit before they even go into the classroom. out of those that do, 40% will only last 5 years and then burn out. Because of the education system we've got, I don't know any school teacher who started the job or went into it thinking they were going to get long holidays and high pay. They went in because they wanted to work with the kids. And if we face it, every school teacher is still working through the holidays. Yeah. Kids might get 12 weeks through the year combined, but the teachers don't. They'd be lucky to even get 1 or 2 weeks. And they're working that. So the amount, when you look at their hourly rate, it's not that great. But they go into that role because our system, the education system doesn't support them. They burn out. So the management problem at the top, this is the politicians and it's the education departments, not the teachers. And so being able to build that stronger relationship with the kids, if the teachers are happier, they're going to stick around, saves a lot of money. Now, just 10% improvement, only on the 5,000, if we just kept 500 school teachers, it's about $25 million saving in New South Wales alone. Wow. If you can see 10% of the 7.5, that's 30, oh, it's at 25, half of that again. So 37%, $37 million a year would be saving. Where could that money be used? The teachers would be happier. If the teachers are happier, the kids are happier. We've got less bullying in the playgrounds and everything goes. We've got kids going home happier. They're not giving their parents problems. So that's leading on to bullying at home. It's leading on to kids driving their parents crazy. I've got a friend of mine who works with parents, and as she said, there's those like she now understands why some animals eat their young. And I reckon that's a brilliant quote, because how many times have you wanted to strangle your kids? I love them, but I can murder them. Like my oldest boy said to me when he was turning 40, he said, "Oh, what am I get for my birthday?" I said, "Why?" I said, "What's?" He said, "Oh, it's 40. It's a big year." I said, "Mate, I've already given it to you." He said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I gave you an extra 19 years. I was going to kill you when you were 21.
Love it.
I love that because you just went, "Oh, fair call," shrugged his shoulders.
Fair call. He should be giving you a present.
That's it. Hey, I'm the one who raised you on my own, and you should be, yeah, definitely giving me a present.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Hey guys, just a little side note here. How's it going? Are you on track this year? I know that sometimes this part of the year we can feel like we're in a bit of a grind, a bit of in the trenches. Are you on track from the original plans that you set out for the rest of this year? What I've realized is that with this time of year, we get so distracted and we've got trying to chase so many shiny balls and go down so many rabbit holes. And that's why I created a program called the 90. It's a framework that actually allows you to achieve more in 90 days than ever before. Some of the feedback that we've got from some of the people that have used the process, the 90, is that they've achieved more in 90 days than the whole previous year. So if you'd like to have the tools, have the techniques, have the framework on the 90, so you and your team can achieve more in 90 days than ever before. What it does, it impacts you of how to get clear, what you need to do, and who you need to be to show up in order to achieve the things you want to achieve over the next 90 days. Simply head over to jamesshort.com.au, click on join the waitlist, fill in your details, and one of the team members will be in touch and take you through the 90 framework. On with the show. It is a big topic and it is a big thing. And I think, giving the teachers more tools and resources so they can, not burn out, connect better, and also be aware of the certain environments. I think it's crucial. It's so important.
So with the youngest one, I've actually trained before my 11-year-old granddaughter was a 15-year-old boy and a 14-year-old boy. When I asked a 15-year-old boy, I said, "How are you using it?" He said, "I'm profiling the other students." I said, "Well, tell me about that." He said, "I now know why they do what they do. I know why they push my buttons." And I said, "Well, what are you getting out of that?" He said, "Tolerance." So I knew that was where we can start reducing bullying in the school grounds and the cyberbullying and everything else, because if we reduce in the playgrounds, we're going to reduce it in cyber as well. The 14-year-old, though, I couldn't use what he said at the time because I was trying to advertise to the school teachers. And that was that he was profiling the school teachers. And I went, "How's that working for you?" With the cheekiest smile on his face, he said, "I know which ones to pick and which ones to leave alone. I'm stirring them more than ever stirred them before." And I said, "And how's that going?" He said, "Well, I know which ones to pick, so I'm not getting into anywhere near as much trouble as I was before." And so he was controlling the classroom.
Wow.
if I can get to the kids, then I'll have to go back to the teacher and apologize. I've created a problem for them because the kids are going to rule the classroom. And if they don't learn this, then they're going to have those issues into the future, because ones who want to manipulate it for their own benefit will do that. Yep. It's my way of getting around an education department, because I got a letter back about a week ago after I told them about what the savings could be and where it'd fit and everything else. And they said, well, we only go with evidence-based things. That's what they've told me now in 2016 and 2012. Because back in 2012, I was talking to them about the 100 kids a year that were taking their lives. The 20 times that, 10 to 20 times that, were actually attempting it. And the 7,000 kids that were going to a hospital from self-harming. And the answer to that was, well, you know, that's just the way things are. In 2016, I was told by the head psychologist for New South Wales Education that, if we keep doing what we've always done, and yes, Alan, everything you said has been absolutely true, but if we keep doing what we've always done, we'll get a different result.
Oh.
And I went,
how's that working for you?
I've heard of a guy called Einstein. I think he's got a theory about that one. But this is the problem. We've got it, and I don't blame those people, because they've got a system that's controlling it. It's a super tanker, as I said before. And so I can say, I can have a go at the psychologists and everything else, but they've got their hands tied as well. Yeah. This comes back to parents going, hey, there are better ways of doing things. Why aren't we looking at it? Because you know yourself from all the reviews and things that I've got, we know how well it works, you know, especially with that business coach I profiled over in Perth. He sent me 5 photographs of all things. I sent him an audio back, 45 minutes, that explained his traits and everything else, and how his buttons would get pushed and how he could use it to his benefit. That was when he told me before that he used to be an undercover narcotics agent for 2 decades, where he'd used skills that were 85 to 95% accurate. As he said, if they hadn't been, he wouldn't be alive today. But what I put in the audio not only matched, but nuanced everything you learned about himself in those 2 decades. So that showed the power of being able to read somebody and the strength of it. And, well, we've got parents who are still doing testimonials, videos for me, over a decade later, of the results that they've got. So the proof is there, but the education department goes, where's the empirical proof? Well, we know all empirical proof is always long behind the actual implementation of something, because they want to watch it over time. Well, there's enough videos of testimonials of people that have come through and done the system with me that are getting massive results. So it's a case of, well, let's trial it. But they won't even do that either. Again, this is the mechanism in which they're working in. And if they do go and look at something, they're worried about their position if something goes wrong. So our kids are suffering because of that.
So true. Very true. Very true. One of the topics that you've been, it's been dear to your heart, and you've sent a bunch of information out on socials, is coercive control. Now, it's an interesting topic, and I'd love to unpack that with you. What is it, and how has it changed over the years?
Well, first of all, I know that everybody talks about, when it comes to domestic violence, coercive control and all those things, and coercive control has been there forever, but has only really been talked about recently. But it's not gender-based. This is the thing that gets, you can only fix a problem when you step back from the emotions and you look at the facts. Once you get the facts, then you can step back into it and go, okay, this is what we need to do. Everything's connected. So one thing happens over here, it then flows on. Like a child, if they're being bullied, then they will become a bully in more cases than not. It is a personal choice, but the majority of them will start doing the same thing. Everybody did it to me, therefore they will do it to others, because it's how we feel that we belong, and we can, we get our own value from it. So coercive control, domestic violence is not gender-based. If we look at the number of suicides in Australia, 9 people a day take their lives. 7 of those are men. At the same time, we know that 1 out of 3 victims in domestic violence is male. And we know that the percentage per capita of domestic violence in heterosexual relationships and lesbian relationships are a similar number in percentage-wise. So it's got nothing to do with gender. It always comes down to, if one party doesn't know how to defend themselves verbally or whatever, and the other party has got all the skills to do that, then there's going to be that confrontation, the frustration. It's like you back a mouse into a corner, it will come out and try and bite you. It's got to defend itself, and that's what's happening. So if somebody's been pressured, then they take that out on somebody else. We also know the breakup of families where one party, whether it be male or female, rubbishes their partner. What they're telling their children is half of them is no good because we're made up of DNA from both. Now, you may be able to rubbish your partner long enough to actually get the sympathy of your kids and everything else, but eventually you're going to lose their respect. And in fact, this is why, even though my first wife and I separated, I made sure that when I was raising the boys on my own, I got her to come back as far as co-parenting them. So they have a relationship with her today. And they're in their late 30s and mid 40s. And so that was a necessity because I realized that I love my sons. I want them to have the best life. So I put all the crap I was feeling towards her aside and went, right, how can I build a relationship? And in fact, my oldest boy, when he was leaving the door one day to go to school when he was 18, he stopped in the doorway, turned around. He said, "Oh, Dad, I just wanted to let you know that we're lucky to have you. I've been talking to my brothers." And I went, "Where did that come from?" 18-year-old boy. And he went, "Well," I said, "Your mother and I divorced." He said, "Yes, we've got 2 houses to go to and neither of you bag each other. And we're comfortable in both places. We don't have any angst about going into each other, to the opposite houses." And I said, "Well, what about your mates? Their parents are married." He said, "Yeah, but they're always fighting. And by the way, didn't you notice there's always 15 kids in the house here after school?" Because
The go-to place. I love it.
Because all their friends were learning from them of how their mother and I were working together. And so they were fascinated by it all. And so they wanted to be part of that and get a feeling for it, which probably put more pressure on their parents because their parents weren't doing that.
Why do you think, like, for those who, I mean, because I have dealt with a lot of clients who are separated with their partners and so forth. Why do you think partners, when they do split, bag each other and put the other partner down and not aware of the impact that it can possibly have on themselves, but also their kids?
Well, think about when we first meet somebody, we fall into that level of lust and we're having that great relationship. Then we decide we want to get married. The dreams that were put in place. We're going to have that white picket fence. We're going to have the cars, car each and all the rest. We'll have our kids. We'll have all this stuff happening. And all of a sudden, that's disappeared. There's a massive feeling of loss. And so the feeling of loss now becomes there's a certain level of resentment towards the partner because, and also there's a resentment towards ourselves as well. Because a lot of when we're angry with somebody, we're angry with ourselves. So we take it out on somebody else. We project it. And so it's understanding ourselves. As I said, first wife and I separated. I kept the boys. She wanted to go and find herself. So I gave her the sports car so she could get there quicker. And, then when I realized that she wasn't around much and I knew the impact that was having on the boys, I thought sooner or later, and they wanted to go and find partners, how are they going to be able to measure the type of partner they should have? So that's what parents are for. We're not sculptors, we're not carpenters. We don't turn our kids into something. Our job is not to structure them into something. Our job is to nurture them. We're gardeners. Our job is to nurture them and help them become the best version of themselves. And the only reason they can do that is when they can see, rightio, if it's a boy, what sort of a man have I got to be? Well, dad's going to be the role model. Dad's their first hero. Mum, well, she's going to be, and Freud talked about implications with kids and mothers. I think it was totally taken wrong. It's a case of we look at our mother and we go, right, if we admire her and she was a great partner for your father and everything else, we're going to go, that's the sort of partner I want. That's why so many men marry their mother, as in they find a woman who acts like their mother. Now, if their mother wasn't the best, they're generally going to find a woman who's going to be like her, who's not the best. And they think, well, I get married and everything's going to be rosy and everything else, but it doesn't end up that way.
And it's so true, right? Because I take a leaf of my own personal journey. Like with Nat and I, we just celebrated 22 years of marriage just last week and 27 together. And I think one of the key elements, our key fundamental values is that aspect of communication. And, you demonstrate the values that you want within the relationship, and then obviously the kids pick up on that and they notice that and they respond to that. And I think, no matter if you've got you're having courageous conversations or you're really connected, they see, hear even the nonverbal language patterns that get picked up between you two. And I think looking at that, I think it's so important. And this is, I think, really coming back to the whole self-awareness piece and knowing yourself and knowing what's going on internally. What are those triggers, and communicating those triggers, and what am I need to work on, and working on that, and developing that, also developing your strengths, but also what are the things that may be holding you back in developing those relationships. And I think that's where, once again, that's where coming back to the profiling is understanding yourself first, which is so important, then the ability to understand others. Is that your sort
Absolutely
of
essential.
thought process
Absolutely
as well?
essential. It's like I first of all said earlier on, that you have to change the way you like to be spoken to match the way the other person needs to be spoken to. To do that, you have to know yourself first of all.
Yeah.
We all feel that everybody is left of us and or right of us. We're in the center. Everything's gauged on us. But when we're communicating with people around the world, it's based on a world scale. First of all, it's where do you fit on that world scale? Are you more towards the right on that particular trait and value and everything else, or more the other way? And where does the other person fit on that same line? So with some people, I need to behave more confidently because that's the way they are, to be able to connect with them. And with others, I need to tone that down because they're really somebody who builds their confidence. They like to be part of a team. They see the person with high level of confidence as a bit of a cocky bastard and can't wait until that person crashes and burns, makes a mistake, because then they feel better about themselves.
Yeah.
And so we need to know where we are on the scale. And the other thing too is there is a little bit of bravery in doing that, because I went to a meeting this morning, and as soon as people heard what I do, it's all,
It's like, oh, don't look at me, Alan.
It's like one of the politicians I sat with, where she was finding out more about what I was doing. She got the clipboard and she just went, and I went, too late. I've already got your personality. I got it when I came through the door. But this, like, everybody is insecure or has suffered. Everybody wears a mask. Everybody pretends they're not wearing a mask. And everybody, as they say, is a combination of all their childhood rewards and sufferings. In other words, how they've chosen to respond to the things that happen in their life. And so everybody is like that. Now, when, Gen X and Gen X and baby boomers, we were brilliant students at school. We were taught to suck it up, especially the men, suck it up, don't show your emotions and everything else. And then what happened? When things are moved on and that, people are going, well, you're physically absent. You're not here at home. People go, but I'm out there bringing the resources in. Men would show their love to the family by being absent from the family. Whereas the mothers showed their love by being there and nurturing, because the woman was a nurturer and the man was a provider. And so we went through that lunacy. And so we'd be away from the family. We'd come back. Our kids started to wonder, who's this who's just come through the door? Oh, that's your father. Yeah. That's how bad it was getting to some people. And then, so if the man stayed at home to be there more often, then they weren't bringing the resources in. That was causing frustration for the men, because you can't be in two places at once. So there was all of that, but men were also taught to suck it up and not talk about it, keep your emotions to yourself. As a kid, I was mentioned to me when I was very young, oh, you're wearing your life on your shirt sleeves. So I learned to shut it down. So if people see something, many years, if people see something in me, what was under the surface was a volcano, but all I could see was a little bit of a splutter on the top. And they went, oh, now you're feeling emotional about something. Oh, say that to me, and out comes a volcano. And so that's what we were taught. Now, at least the kids that are going through now, coming through, they're more connected with their emotions, but they haven't had the guidance of the proper males to show them how to handle it the right way. So now they're being over emotional, and the older generation look down their nose at the younger generation. But let's face it, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is the way I look at generations. Survival, that was the builders. My parents went through 2 wars, 2 depressions, and a lot of other stress. It was about, where's the money for today? Where's the food on the table? What we taught, baby boomers and Gen X, go out, get a job, get your a superannuation scheme in place. So you've got your security. You go up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you get to the next level and the next level and go up. And so now we've got well, Gen Y, they would look at their Gen X parents and baby boomer parents and go, in England, they called them latch kids because they come home from school, the latch on the door to open it up, they'd be home and their parents weren't at home. So they'd look after themselves until their parents got home. We did the same here in Australia. The end result was those kids were going, what about the family? What about us? And so any generation that we look at and we have an issue about, we always look back at ourselves. I remembered a friend of mine, he's a Gen X, and he put a post up about Gen X, millennials and baby boomers and the description of each. And because he's a Gen X, he said, well, from the description, Gen X are the best. So I just put a response on his post going, well, you do realize that each generation creates the next generation. I'm a baby boomer. You're welcome. And
boom, drop the mic.
And then the next thing is, these millennials, what the hell did you do? Of course, no response on that comment.
Yeah, but, crickets. Crickets.
The thing is taking personal responsibility first.
Yep.
Know yourself and talk to the other person the way that they need to be spoken to. I have conversations with people all the time just to listen to understand them. And I listen to all different the gender identities, religions, cultures, etc. I've walked in quite a number of different cultural areas, worked with people there. And in every case, I've never met anybody who hasn't got a valid story, of an interesting story of one form or another. Yep. Now, if I can find that interest, the connection between me and them, then I can look at their differences. I don't have to condone the differences, but I understand why they're doing what they're doing. And with that, I can then empathize with them on that. I can make a connection with them. And if there's an opportunity from the connection I have with them for them to then go, oh, there is a better way I can do things, brilliant. So I don't put my beliefs on them, but in our conversation, quite often they go, oh, there's a different idea. I hadn't thought of that before. Now, well, what impact do you reckon to have that on your life if you did that? We have a nice, deep conversation at that point. So it's about the connections we make. Any owner of business, if they come through the door, what do you know about your people? What do you know about their personal life, etc.? You might say, okay, I run a business. It's all about making money. Well, if you want to make more money, your staff need to be happy in what they're doing. They have to feel that they belong, they contribute, they're valued. If you do all of that, they will then be more loyal and they won't shy away from you, because when you first start doing this, I guarantee they're going, what the hell is going on here? You don't normally do that. What's the ulterior motive? So sometimes you have to explain to them and say, look, I've realized that there are better ways of doing things. I know this is my personality. This is the way I talk. So I'm going to do my best to change that. I want to know more about you people so that you're happier in what you're doing, so we can create a better future of this business together and all profit together. And go through that sort of an explanation, but in your own words, of course. And then people will go, okay, well, may not believe you, but let's see how it works. There's a little bit of curiosity. That's the next step. And then you can take it from there. And if you keep walking your talk, then that will happen. A good example of that, I had a friend of mine. He had a great mate of his. His mate didn't like me one little bit. I was walking down the road one day and he was walking past me with his wife, and he stopped me and he said, he said, Alan, I never liked you. What's going on? And he said, but I've watched you over the last 10 years and you've never changed. You've been consistent all the way through. So he and his wife and I went and had coffee and we became good friends.
Oh, wow.
So, love it. But the fact that he was brave enough to actually come up and make that statement because he was so curious as to, with whatever was happening around us, I kept on behaving exactly the same way.
So what haven't we talked about that you think we need to talk about so the listeners can have an even greater experience?
Well, if couples, for instance, first thing I'd say to them is put aside the things you've got angst you got about things at the moment, but go back and not look at what you wanted to create when you first got married, those dreams that you had. Don't look at them from the point of view of I've lost those, but what would it be like if we still had that in place? How can we actually get that in place again? Now, if they're able to read their partner, because quite often the traits that our partner has attracted us in the first place. But as I said, every trait's got an upside and every trait's got a downside. Like you and I both got aesthetic appreciation, so how it feels inside. We've got a partner who's got dramatic appreciation. They express outwardly. Great, exciting when we first, they're the life of the party. They're wonderful to go out on dates with and everything else. But over time, we get used to that. But now we notice that they also need to verbalize when they're stressed. And we go, that's not my personality because I withdraw to my cave when I'm stressed. So when they're, I got too much energy, I need to get away from this. But if I then realize that that's how they need to express themselves, then how do I talk to them in a way in which they can do that? It's very simple. I can ask them, I thought, do you want me to fix this or do you want me to listen? If they then want you to listen, you just, well, it's got nothing to do with anything you've done. So you don't take any angst on that. You just listen to them. If you love them and you want to build a relationship, you do that. In the case of the person who's got the dramatic appreciation, they want to know what's going on with the person like you or me who's withdrawn to our cave. If they came up firstly and went, is it anything to do with me? No, it's not. Is there anything I can help you with? No, it's not. Well, I know you need to work on this on your own. So I'm going to leave you alone to do that. Now, we need to add one more bit to that because at that point you think, oh, they're given up on us. But they say to us, no, but when you get it to where you can explain it, can you come back and tell me because I care? So now we know they're respecting our space. They're allowing us to do that. They're taking the pressure off this nagging in the ear as we hear it. And all of a sudden, then we start to get a fondness back for them. We start to recognize the trait, the side of the traits that brought us together in the first place. So this is how we can rekindle those relationships. In business, understand the person's personality so that we can talk to them and go, okay, what are the things that they love doing? In telecom, we might do massive projects. Because I was in the computer field, we'd be wiring offices up with computer cables and everything else. I would look at my staff and work out who was the person who was best at this. I was great at doing terminations and things like that on the cables and all the rest of it. And I was happy to sit there and do that. So I'd actually say to one of my team members, right, you and I are working together to plan all this out. You're running it. And they go, what are you going to be doing? I'm going to be on your team. So I found the person who had the best skills and I put them in charge. That way we kept on getting projects done faster. We always hit so lower than what the budget was. We always saved money on the deals, which blew the management away. And that person felt that they were valued. That was why half my staff wanted to leave when I left, wanted to come with me.
Love it. So talk to us about I mean, you've got so many programs at the moment, but I think the biggest thing is that master program because it's a real game changer. It's a real value that you explore so much. What's the if you think about the biggest benefits and biggest takeaways of the master program that you're running, what would they be?
Well, at the end of the day, the person who's done the course has got a massive smile on their face because they've realized that all the pressures and headaches they had disappeared. An example of that is I had a college lecturer over in Dublin, in the Griffith College. She works in the arts area and she usually had 7 students. They come from around the world, usually with Asperger's, autism, dyslexia, etc. And she would have 7 in a class. Well, as we were training, one of the other colleges closed and she went from 7 students to 70.
Wow.
Now, we worked on how to get them working in pods and everything else, and she did that. She was loving it. She's, the smile on her face every time we talk about the results that she was getting from their creative minds and everything else. And all the other college lecturers were going, what the hell is going on? We're struggling, but you're not. And so I went, okay, next thing now is to train her with her material and mine to go put a course together. She goes and delivers to the other college lecturers. That's why I'm looking to create and train my competition. More people doing what I'm doing, but they have to be doing it right. Therefore, I've got a moral obligation to train them and I can help them do that. So the end result is in business, if it's workplace relationships, they'll improve that out of sight. They'll know how to talk to their customers. They'll know how to talk to their staff. They'll know how to guide their staff to talk to their customers in a better way. They'll build loyalty and trust and everything else. In sales, well, now they can look at somebody and go, okay, this person is all about the value. This person is all about the service they receive. So how do you talk to them in that way? An example, a commercial builder up in Queensland, he quoted on a building, $2 million. The clients wouldn't go above 1.6. Deal was falling off the table. So I got him to give me photos of each of the guys. One we found on Google and one he found on LinkedIn. We profiled them. I said, rightio, this is how you change the way. First of all, this is how you rewrite your email you're going to send to them. But secondly, this is how you talk to them. Well, in the conversation he had with, because the senior partner was all about service. So he talked about what this building needed and everything else to really present that service to the clients. He added another $150,000 to his original quote and signed him off on it.
Wow.
That's the sort of outcome you can get into business. If you're working with a big ticket items, you'll get big ticket responses. Smaller ones, the whole thing is, everybody who works with me, by the time they've finished the course, they're already starting to make money. I had a mortgage broker who was in the second week. We just finished the 2 weeks training. The third week he came in, he went, thanks for telling me what you told me last week. He said, I've just pulled these clients over the line that I couldn't get before, and I've already paid for the course.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So, Alan, thank you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for the impact that you're having. You're spreading so much value, knowledge, information, insights, and you are making a big difference in the world. Thank you for sharing those insights today. And for those listening, watching, head on over to alanstevens.com.au for more information. Take the profile, enroll in his courses. It is epic. So, mate, from my heart to yours, thank you so much for sharing your journey and your story once again.
Well, thank you very much. If I might add one more thing, those that are interested in the master course at the moment, I've just created a new one which goes into using negotiation skills that they use in hostage negotiation, profiling in the combat areas, extra traits, be able to look at somebody and know it's somebody you should stay out of a relationship with. And in putting that course together, I want to test it. So I'm throwing that in free with the first master course. They get me for twice as much time. We go into a whole lot of extra work that we need to cover so that I can fine tune that so that it'll go as a sale item later on.
Love it. And so for them to actually jump on that opportunity now, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you ASAP?
Well, jump on the website, have a look at the programs page, and they'll see the first two courses, the second one I'm throwing in. Jump on the contact form and just send me an email and say they're interested, and we'll set up a time to have a chat. But I always look at, they've got to have the right attitude. If they're focused on building their business by helping other people and everything else, I've got all day to spend with them. No problems at all. If they're just there to make money, I'm not really interested. But if they've got the right attitude, then they'll make more money.
Love it. Love it. Alan, thank you, mate. Really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to chatting to you again real soon.
Thank you very much.